A warm welcome from CXOTV.news, our flagship brand under Tech Plus Media Group. Today we bring a very interesting topic, which is, do we need to recalibrate 7 Ps of marketing? With evolving processes and changing paradigms, it calls for an introspection if we really need to recalibrate 7 Ps of marketing. We will cover marketing basics, evolution from 4 Ps, which we all know is product, price, promotion, and place. And we'll also touch upon current scenario and challenges, and then what sort of technological intervention is required. I'll request the panelists to introduce themselves.
My name is Kunal, and I've been a career marketer largely focused on the B2B domain with tech and telecom brands. I'm fortunate to have a mix of product as well as services marketing experience, having worked with organizations such as L&T, Amdocs, AT&T, and Datamatic. And I currently work for SAS, which is a global leader in analytics and AI. And I lead the marketing and communication functions for SAS for the two major regions of India and Japan.
This is Saket here. I am also a career marketer. I've been doing this for last 16, 17 years now. I've been very fortunate. I've worked across the spectrum. Some of the brands that I've worked with are MasterCard, Barclays, Citibank, HSBC. I've launched housing.com in India back in 2015, then moved to a brand called Ben Franklin, which is an optical chain. I currently head marketing for Oxford Cabs, which is a student accommodation provider.
I have about a decade plus of experience in sales and marketing. I started with IT, then I moved to FMCG, and now I'm currently in the healthcare domain. So my experience is more or less split half and half between FMCG and healthcare. I've spent my time and got my hands dirty in sales. I've handled and been privileged to be a part of really big brands in Asian Paints, Royale. And after which I moved to country operations, marketing for Novartis. And currently I am the global marketing director for the diabetes portfolio, which spans across 130 countries worldwide.
So welcome Kunal, Saket, and Sanjeev. What are these much hyped 7 Ps of marketing? Just wanted to understand from you as to why is it so important for a marketeer?
There are several essential frameworks which are available in the industry that you can apply to your marketing strategy for your products or services. Now, the 7 Ps model, also called the marketing mix, is a very familiar framework amongst marketers. And as you pointed out, Anand, it was traditionally limited to the 4 Ps of product, price, and promotion. Now, the 4P model was developed, as you said, by Edmund McCarthy and also published in his book, after which it became extremely popular. So if you look at the structure, the first P, it refers to the product. So that is basically what the company is selling. It also includes the features, gains, and benefits that the product gives to the customers. So ideally, the product should fit the task the customers want it for, and it should work, and it should be what the consumers are expecting to get. Now, the second P is place. Now, that's where the goods, products, etc. are showcased, distributed, and sold. Now, this could be in a mom and pop shop around the corner. It could be a mall, or in the more current option, it's like an e-commerce or an online shop. The third P, which is price, it's the amount that people, essentially the consumers, are willing to pay. And that allows for revenue to actually inflow into the organization. So the pricing strategy, which is part of this, the third P, identifies the price, and not just the price, but also the markups, overheads, any sort of profit margins, and costs associated with it. Now, coming to the fourth P, which is promotion, that's essentially what marketers are very, very well versed in, which is essentially finding the right target audience and establishing the brand and quality of products. So advertising, PR, sales, promotions, any sort of events that we might be doing, those are all key promotional tools for an organization. Now, this framework, which is the 4 Ps, was a fairly adequate framework for the time where products were essentially very, very popular. So as the world economy actually started developing, more services-based organizations started to rise. And by the late 70s, the 4P framework was actually found to be inadequate. Right? So services marketing has a lot of intangibles. It's perishable, it's quite inseparable from the product itself, and it's also heterogeneous. So Booms and Bittner in 1981 actually suggested that we add 3 more Ps to this whole framework. Those 3 Ps would be people, processes, and physical environment. So People represent essentially the whole human ecosystem that participate in the entire service delivery. So that includes all our employees, consultants, freelancers who actually deliver the service to the customers. Processes are the steps essentially that are required to deliver the services itself. So, service companies typically design process maps that outline all the functions, activities, and tasks, and that's basically handed over to the employees so that they can make the work repeatable, consistent, and successful. The last P is physical awareness or physical environment, also can be used interchangeably. But it's quite simply the environment in which the service occurs. So it could be great facilities or buildings, it could be a corporate website in today's world, or it could be an ambience that you see in a restaurant. You see, Anand, the frameworks is very straightforward. And that's, in my opinion, the reason that it became super popular in the very first place. Marketing is nothing but the art and science of satisfying consumer needs in a profitable manner. And this 7P framework actually gives executives a way to ensure that all the elements of their marketing program are considered in a simple yet disciplined fashion.
Our next question, Saket, how do you see this entire thing? Is there an order of importance for these, world of 7Ps?
I might not add a P, I might replace a P here and there. So I believe that the emergence of platforms, when I say platforms, whether it's an e-commerce platform, whether it's an OTT platform, whether it is a SaaS platform for various products and things like that, I think what that has done is it has kind of replaced the place and distribution itself. Okay, so for example, there is this brand which I really love. From a marketing point of view, there's a brand from Calcutta called Jovies. Okay, so Jovies is a beauty brand, and I have not seen them anywhere but inside of a mall or on Amazon or on the best of the platform, Nykaa and other places. So what they have done is they have utilized the platform itself and used that itself as a promotion tool. Okay, so it's kind of, they have merged blurred the line between promotion and distribution and things like that. Second P which I always feel challenged about is the product itself. Because what's happening is the product itself is always pivoting. Like I was reading, 2 case studies recently. Byju's used to be sold on a CD. Now it's on an app and on a tablet platform. I'm sure the way things are going, it's going to be completely digitally delivered. Okay, so the product itself is changing. So by the time a marketing guy has built the brand, so the brand has to never been built nowadays basis product. It has to be kind of slightly built higher than just being a product. So therefore you see, a product like Byju's, the reason why they are investing, in a cricket team and things like that is they are building a brand which can then subsume many new products and things which the brand will kind of give to the customers. So the product itself is evolving at all the times. So platforms also, again coming back to the platforms are becoming more and more intelligent because of AI. What's happening is I think all of us know how good the Amazon recommendation engine is, or how good the Netflix recommendation engine is. So there are talks that Amazon Prime right now it has a feature called X-ray, where you can go and see the trivia and things like that about that particular thing. What they are going to do is within the process of watching something, if you like the shirt which Anand is wearing, chances are using the AI, the platform will identify that Anand is wearing a Zodiac shirt, model number so and so, and the customer can there and then place an order, and he doesn't need to do it physically. There is an Alexa device. He's going to probably tell Alexa, place the order for Anand's t-shirt. So the platform, product, all things are becoming extremely connected to each other. So I believe that these 2 P's are which probably need looking at, and though it's very complex, they might still get subsumed under the older P's. But all marketing guys, especially in the direct-to-consumer business or the B2C business, have to look at this very, very seriously.
Sanjeev, over to you, Sanjeev. What do you think? There's so many other theories that are there, like SWOT, PISTOL, stakeholder mapping, BCG matrix. How do you see everything falling in place as a marketeer? What should I know?
First, I'd like to start by taking on from where Saket left off, because I do believe that while the 7Ps give us a great framework, platforms are definitely one of those Ps to consider, which kind of intermingle amongst the 7Ps. But there is another P that is getting increasingly important with the advent of this whole digitalization and social awareness that people have because of the digital medium, and that P is actually purpose. Because now brands and products alone cannot exist based only on features and benefits and attributes, but it's more of what kind of purpose and messaging are they driving holistically from a company standpoint or for a brand. So recently, I think most of you on this call would have seen the Nike ad, right? And it's not probably the first ad that talks about what the company actually wants us to think that they are. It's not just about making shoes, it's not just about making apparels, but it's about celebrating the entire spirit of togetherness, of sports, of winning, of competition, healthy competition, right? So purpose is definitely one of those very critical P's that play an important role, especially in today's environment where people connect more with the company's purpose than with the product itself, and especially in products which cannot easily be distinguishable from one another. Coming to the different frameworks that exist, frameworks definitely give us a better way of structuring our thought process, but it's what we do with the data in these frameworks that matters the most. And I think one of the things that especially the poll also showed that in healthcare and life sciences, there's maximum intervention of marketing required, and this we are slowly even seeing happening, because while there's enough and more data available, I think what's not still set and has a huge way to go is what are we doing with this data in terms of targeting the right market? And secondly, are we actually drawing insights, or are we just going with pure play data to identify the white spaces and sell the products? And you'd be surprised to hear that even in the pharma sector, you can have insightful marketing. And considering that now products pretty much are available a dime a dozen, right? Insights will allow us to actually enhance and get out the unrealized reality for the target market, which helps us tap into the emotional, attitudinal, and behavioral elements that will help us market our products better. So insight mining itself is a science, and it's not something that can be done easily. It has to actually follow a certain set of processes that allow us to help draw an insight from using all of these frameworks. So while frameworks, anything now can be classified in a 2x2 matrix, but what's important is that what are the axes that we're putting in those metrics to come out at something meaningful that helps us market our products better. So all in all, it's in pharma, especially in healthcare and life sciences, we are moving now more and more away from just the product and the features into drawing meaningful insights which lead to a particular patient benefit, which helps us advertise or promote our products much better to the customers. And in our case, the customers are the healthcare professionals. So unlike any other industry where the influencer may or may not have as much of a say in consumers' buying behavior, in healthcare, it's completely different, because I don't know when was the last time you actually challenged a particular prescription, but rather you would just go and buy it and start consuming the medication. So the decision maker is actually the customer for your products to succeed. And in order to have the customer cater to what we want to tell them, we'll have to identify a patient benefit with a larger purpose, and hence be able to evolve our selling skills in that aspect.
No, I think absolutely. That also assumes a lot of importance or significance when these days we are questioning as to what's the intent of hospitals or healthcare industry overall behind the entire pandemic that is spanning, right? So I think you are absolutely spot on that purpose defines rather the intent or the purpose of the organization in these challenging times has assumed a larger significance than as compared to I'll say price or promotion, for sure. Okay.
And it's probably the time under the sun for the healthcare companies to really emerge because of the current pandemic situation. I think people's focus has now moved to healthcare, and they're seeing it in a positive light for a change. as an industry that's willing to collaborate for the greater good of mankind, rather than an industry that's just competing or trying to, people have the notion that they're trying more to fleece rather than actually benefit the patients. But I think now it's finally the time for people to actually acknowledge and realize what's happening in the industry.
Kunal, what are the challenges that you see that are starting at an enterprise marketer? How to overcome them?
The last 4 months have been an extremely tough time for enterprise marketers. So for many organizations, COVID-19 actually got 4 Ps of marketing into 4 Cs. That is chaos, confusion, crisis management, and complexity. So the customers may possibly never know what a company's finance department or an HR department and how they kind of respond to a particular event. But marketing sits center stage. So its moves are reflected in every brand campaign, every message, every channel that we are using. So we, in marketing, actually set the tone for how customers are perceiving their brand. So the challenge number one, especially in the last 2-3 months, has been that how do you take the right actions and how do you find the right message to be communicated to employees, customers, partners, and really the entire ecosystem. And that can be particularly challenging, especially in the fast-changing scenario that we have been witnessing. So challenge number 2 would be that the fact that pandemic actually accelerated all the brands to move to a completely digital world. Now, what it meant for enterprise marketers like me is that we had to actually throw out everything that we had painstakingly built as a marketing plan and pivot to a completely new world, which is completely digital in nature. Everything was working. So it was like a fresh start. And challenge number 3 would be the fact that we couldn't necessarily foresee what the customer's needs, wants, expectation, and how essentially the whole purchasing decision will really evolve. I think these were the 3 major challenges that we saw. Now, as a brand, if I were to now, look back and think what we kind of did right, I think we did, at least 3 or 4 things very, very well. I think the very first thing that we did as an organization was that we actually set up a special team focused on only COVID incident management, right? And this was to coordinate SaaS's efforts to support our customers throughout this crisis. The very first thing that we did after that was that we actually developed a communication program. And that communication program was completely focused on care and concern. So we kept safety of our employees, customers, vendors, and partners paramount. Right? So there were clear policies that were outlined. Second, after that, I think from a marketing standpoint, what we decided is to reach out with support and not marketing. Right? So COVID-19 actually presented a great opportunity for us as an organization to identify meaningful ways to solve customer challenges and drive engagement based on value rather than opportunistic marketing. So Sanjeev just mentioned purpose, right? So I think the pandemic really allowed a lot of reflection for many organizations, including ours. And I think the purpose of what we are actually intending to do became very, very clear. So actually, we developed a dedicated COVID-19 data analytics hub on SaaS.com. It is a publicly accessible dashboard that monitors the spread of the epidemic. We also rolled out free modeling environments for epidemiologists who can actually use all of the data from universities like Johns Hopkins and 50,000 live documents on coronavirus to analyze our. Further to that, we also actually came up with relevant value propositions for various things. So, for example, helping manufacturers or retailers sense the short-term fluctuating demand and adapt accordingly. Or in the case of Odisha government, where we actually work with government officials to limit the spread of the disease by developing a COVID dashboard that tracks cases, deaths, recoveries, and also identifies hotspots. So we actually work with hospitals, which is, we develop predictive models to predict how many beds, ventilators, and what sorts of medical resources would be required at what stage. This particular dashboard was completely a pro bono effort, and It was actually launched by the Chief Minister Naveen Patnaik in April. So it's actually receiving 40,000 hits every single day, and it's got accolades from the world over, including Stanford University. So I mean, it's publicly available. Do go check it out. All you need to do is Google, COVID-19 dashboard, Odisha, and you first thing that'll appear would be that. And I think the last thing that I think as a business we did very well was any business during this time would see all the revenues slowly starting to dry up, right? And the situation can get really unpredictable. So, we assessed the disruption, we defined the theoretical best, worst, and moderate case scenarios that could possibly play out. And based on those scenarios, we have actually built an agile strategy that can help navigate those turns. So, from a Japan perspective, for example, the best case business as usual scenario would involve ad purchases during Tokyo Olympic Games. Whereas the worst case scenario would be that the event itself would get cancelled, and we would have to find alternate ways to reach the customers. So that's a very quick, simple example of that you might be able to relate. So kind of to summarize, I think we need to focus on safety and concern. We reached out to customers as support rather than marketing really, and kind of drew up an agile strategy with a scenario planning baked right. So those are some of the things that helped us kind of overcome the disruption that has happened in the last 2 or 3 months.
That's really great, Kunal. Thanks for sharing the insights and practical aspects of it. My next question is to you. You have had very diverse experiences. From a startup point of view, what sort of challenges or marketing challenges, to be precise, an entrepreneur faces, and how one should go about addressing them?
Biggest challenge which any new startup will face will be the product itself, because products are evolving extremely fast. Okay, so I'll give you an example from Oxford Cabs. It started out as a B2C product where students from all over India would come and stay at our properties. What we realized during the process of marketing is that there is a huge unmet demand of the colleges who want to run their own hostels by a professional company like us. So we immediately pivoted and started a B2B arm, where we have some 8 to 10 colleges right now, and hopefully lot more by the end of this year, where there is suddenly a new model which is kind of emerged. So when you're building a brand, you have to be, especially as a startup, be very, very agile in trying to keep changing your marketing strategy very quickly. So like I said before, you have to kind of build an umbrella brand which can subsume different products or services that the brand will start offering. So that is the first kind of challenge that a marketing guy will face in a startup. Apart from that, going back to my 7 P's discussion, 1 P which I kind of missed was personalization. Now today, as products are becoming more and more commoditized, personalization is 1 P which will start emerging more seriously, and that's again where platforms will come back into the being. So startups have to be very sure that, especially in the B2C space, have to be very sure as to how they can leverage the personalization part, keep improving and pivoting on the product, plus leverage platforms to kind of keep growing forward. So the biggest challenge remains is that how do you keep marketing relevant, because the product itself is evolving at a super fast stage.
But how do you balance, Saket, the different, how do you juggle between the different balls? Because everything, whatever you do, costs you, right? It needs investment, it needs money, right? So if you want to draw from your, experience to how you have managed those different things in marketing perspective.
I'll go back to my housing.com experience. While it was a very short one, it was a very enlightening one, because if you see, housing.com was an app and a website where you could come and search for your house. Now, it could be a rental house, it could be something that you want to buy. We were going to launch commercial real estate, we were going to launch land and other products within that framework itself. Now, how do you create a brand which will appeal to, say, Kunal's company from a commercial point of view, and then appeal to Sanjeev from him wanting to buy a house for himself. So that is very very tricky to create. So so there is no right answer to this. You always have to kind of keep dodging as the bowler is bowling, because no one ball is different from the other, and at the speed at which changes are happening. If you enter into, I used to work at Mastercard, my strategy would get locked in October of the previous year, and I could execute the entire year of strategy without changing even a bit of my plan. Now that I'm talking about is 2010 to 2015. After that, the world has just dramatically changed. So I today cannot enter a meeting with a plan which is longer than 3 months and think what has happened in the last 3 months. And Kunal spoke about how whether to do Tokyo Olympics or not is a decision he had to take in probably in the best case scenario. And all his plans have completely gone haywire, because that's how how fast the change is happening. So honestly, you have to be always ready that tomorrow morning you will be faced with a new marketing challenge. The idea is, with the same amount of money that all of us have in the marketing departments, how do you kind of balance it out without losing the sight of the big picture? So basics will always remain the same, and then you build up as the requirement arises.
Coming back to you, Sanjeev, do you agree or wish to add anything? And anything specific you want to share from the healthcare and life sciences industry? How has large enterprise like yours managed during this time?
I would completely echo what Kunal mentioned, and the fact is that at these critical times, it's not about making the most of the situation when it comes to what marketers do. And you should not be in the game of purpose washing, because people are trying to now just join purpose to COVID, but that's not the actual thing. It's about providing support, because if you really look at what a marketer needs to do, it's to have long-term impact, and that will come by actually providing what your consumers, who are one of your key stakeholders, or your employees want. It is actually support. So the key to what we did as a company, and what happened mostly in healthcare organizations, especially the large giants, is that communication got rapidly enhanced. And when I say communication, it's about communication from leadership, communication between teams, communication with the field force, was all towards actually talking about the support that we give them, and the fact that if we are supporting them, they will end up doing a better job in supporting our external stakeholders, right? And while resources are constrained, the good part that has come out of COVID is that in an industry like healthcare and life sciences, it's always been about physical engagement. It's always been about having a proper touch point with the healthcare professionals, with the hospital officials, and it's never been in the digital route. And if you see, all the top key opinion leaders are probably at a certain age where they don't really adapt very easily to digital technologies. But because of the entire pandemic situation, what we realized was that we were way ahead of the curve in our digital engagement. Back in 2018-19, we used to have much more digital engagement than physical ones compared to a lot of other companies. And that paved the way for us to be able to do meaningful communication with the HCPs. In terms of the support that we provided to them, was that we accelerated independent investigative trials, because a lot of these key professionals, opinion leaders, wanted to do trials with respect to COVID, and that's how we supported them. And the biggest learning for us is that when you don't have the engagements and the large meetings and the trips, etc., that means at that time, the doctor actually wants to connect on content. And there's no better company than large pharmaceutical companies like Novartis, which actually have scientific content and scientific communication to actually leverage upon during these times. So resources, in fact, have been better spent than they were before, because the time as well as the speed of execution has drastically improved, because all our communication happens through the digital platform. Of course, there have been some challenges in terms of approvals, in terms of how we publish papers and societies, because now even all the major congresses have gone digital. But due to COVID, the overall industry, healthcare industry per se, has become far more agile and flexible than I have seen it to be in the past couple of years. And this is coming from the fact that Novartis, as a large conglomerate, has always spoken about agility and has been the early adopter of technology and digital. But the rapid change and the pilot, so to say, has happened thanks to COVID. And in fact, when we get out of this, hopefully in the near future or in the far, things are never not going to be the same again, in the way that we work, in the way that we communicate, or in the way that we engage with different stakeholders as well. The other thing that I want to add is that, Saket, while in B2C and in startups, personalization is a P that you spoke about, and I'm glad you brought it up, because even in medicine, now we are talking about personalized medicine. So I don't know how many of you have heard about cell and gene therapy. It's actually, the medicine is curated to a particular individual to save them off life-threatening diseases. So personalization is definitely one of the very, very important pieces, because today consumers don't fall under those large target markets that we spoke about. For example, if we invented the wheel back then all the automotive sector would have wanted to adopt that. But today it's not the same. Every consumer, every target market is actually shrinking to become smaller and smaller. So personalization is an important aspect, but at the same time, managing resources is equally important. I'm saying this because I want to break the myth that in the healthcare industry, certain products with patent are priced extremely high. The reason for that is the gestation period is much longer, and the overall health economics of the benefit that you get out of personalized medication is far better than actually living with the disease over a long duration of time. I probably digressed a bit, but I just wanted to bring that up since you spoke about personalization as well.
No, that was great. That was great, Sanjeev, and that's what we were looking forward to, as to if we can draw something specifics from the healthcare industry. Kunal, if I may switch on to you, you handle both India and Japan right now, right? What are the perspective shifts between the two countries with respect to marketing, and how do you see the overall future unfolding for us marketeers?
In Japan, when you actually project a deal for closure, right, you're pretty much assured that it will come through. So there's a lot of certainty in the way business is getting conducted there. In India, even without COVID, right, we actually truly lived in a VUCA world. It's volatile, it's uncertain, it's complex, and it's ambiguous, right? So it's just a way people are wired in these two different geographies that kind of have an impact on business itself. Now, secondly, I think India is an extremely price-sensitive market, right? And that goes across all products, whether it's FMCG or even pharma for that. Whereas Japan is a quality-focused market, right? So, and along with the quality focus, Japan's consumers' desire for luxury goods itself is fairly high. The appetite is very good, which means that the likes of Gucci, Bulgari, Salvatore Ferragamo, etc. earn more than a quarter of their global revenue from this one single market. Right? So, as a marketer, your reputation and honor is very, very important. So, you got to champion that, in all of your communication. So, though we are not a luxury brand, we often have to actually lead with the fact that as SaaS, we have been specializing in analytics since 1976, and we actually bring 40 years of domain expertise as a market leader. Right? So that message is extremely important. The differences between the two markets also extend to social media. So, for example, one commonality here is that FB and Twitter, for example, are widely popular in both markets. But for a Japanese, LinkedIn is actually seen just as a job hunting site rather than a networking site. So actually, if you're a Japanese and if you're on LinkedIn, then it can be seen by your boss as an indication that you're looking out. And that's not really good at all. Another cultural nuance is that the Japanese tend not to boast about their career accomplishment. And LinkedIn as a platform, for example, is a place to do just that. So it's very acceptable to see an Indian profile read something like, I've grown revenue from 5 crore to 20 crore in just 2 years. But on the contrary, it's very rare that you will see the Japanese talk about themselves that way openly. So, as a marketer, you got to be sensitive to that, and to also be remembering that you don't have access to a certain networking platform which is more like professional networking. Right? So I think those were some of the differences largely from in India and Japan perspective. And coming back to the second question, which you mentioned about the future. Now, it's tough to say how things will pan out. Right? but I think we are seeing some trends emerging. And purely, I'm speaking from a end consumer standpoint rather than wearing my hat from a B2B market. What I'm seeing in both markets is that there will be a very high demand for hygiene. Right? The people are more concerned about their health and they are more interested in products and services that put safety first. Right? So, as a marketer, safety and hygiene needs to be much more central in the messaging, if not in a product itself. The second trend that I'm seeing in both markets is the fact that nutrition and immunity boosting food again is going to be top of the mind. So interestingly, yogurt, which was actually on a downward trend in Japan since 2016, went on to hit record high sales in 2020. Right? In a very similar way, Chyawanprash sales in India grew by 283% just in June. Right? So you can see that trend happening in both regions. Now, on the B2B side of things, right, I certainly see some differences as well. So, for example, low birth rates and rising life expectancies in Japan have meant that the country has an aging population. Now, this demographic threatens to slow down the GDP growth for them. So, in turn, what that means is that Japan has to aggressively invest in AI and automation. Now, on the contrary, India is a very young nation. So while automation and AI will still be an investment area, it will be for improving productivity, weeding out human errors, as opposed to directly augmenting the lack of a workforce. So that's a slight difference that I see. And the last thing is, I think purely from a marketing mix, the 7 P's standpoint, right? Digitization in the whole marketing mix is going to be definitely a prominent position. So banks that have rolled out new and interactive digital banking, they've tried new shopping experiences. They've tried rolling out remote learning, and the B2B side, we have tried with virtual events, and all of these have been fairly successful. What that means is that there could be a longer term effect. I do suspect that many of these changes will possibly become permanent, becoming part of the new normal after the pandemic. Now, the last point I think that's really important out here is that predicting the future is really very risky business, and we have all seen that no one would have possibly thought that we will end up in this kind of a situation, right? But as leaders, I think we need to display a sense of comfort. We need to reduce fear, uncertainty, and doubt, and build a resilient team structure within our organization. We may not know what lies ahead. I certainly don't, for example. But I think what you can do very well is to develop the muscle to keep moving forward while being ready to adapt. Build to last was a great mantra for the past, but I think build to adapt is going to be the new mantra. And most importantly, as a marketer and as a brand, we got to be acting with purpose. We got to be making it central to our activities and act with purpose every single time. So that's my take on it.
I certainly, I resonate with your thoughts. How technology can help in these challenging times? Any innovative ideas or use cases you want to share? Now we all know about collaboration tools and security and data availability and so on and so forth. But how otherwise technology can help?
Starting from where Kunal left, so we basically need a Nostradamus in the Alexa machine. Okay, because that's the only way technology can really help. Because trust me, as of today, technology can only help, like Kunal said, in improving your productivity, especially in a country like India. So basically what you will do is, instead of probably manually doing something, so if I'm talking about marketing software, if instead of manually reading data and acting on it, I've been trying to myself research on AI in marketing. I've read some case studies. Most of them seem to be extremely successful, but nobody has really come up with a solution really where AI in marketing can be implemented at a scale. Okay, so everybody's trying to do it in their own little way, but AI in marketing specifically is something that I'm waiting for. Hopefully will champion in the organization that I work for. So that should help. Okay. Second thing is from a technology point of view, I think brands across the spectrum, whether it is Kunal SaaS or Sanjeev's Novartis or direct to consumers or B2C brands like us, we have to be ready. That's the technology itself. The way technology is consumed itself is changing dramatically. So like I said, it is predicted that voice search itself is going to be one of the largest disruptors, so to say. So a lot of native language understanding processing which is happening, NLP, the other full form of NLP, which is happening. A lot of vernacular content is being searched using a mobile phone. Okay. And what that is doing is that if you as a content creator, whatever, a marketer, do not have content in a vernacular form, whether in a sound, in visual, or in written form, you are going to be left far behind. So it is not just about blogging. It is about having those so there's this lovely book called Crushing It by Gary Vaynerchuk, and in the last chapter he talks about how say for example Kunal's company is in analytics, and they create something for Alexa, and every time somebody talks about say he spoke about how many beds are there in a hospital, in this hospital, Alexa is able to go into the database which Kunal has created at backend, pick up that data and throw it as an answer in a verbal format. Okay, so those are the technologies which are kind of emerging, and trust me, next time when we speak, hopefully soon, most of us would be more conducive to using that technology. So I've traveled to Hong Kong a few years back, like about a year and a half back, and I saw most of them, most of people, instead of messaging, they are standing on the ferry, and they're continuously doing something like a walkie-talkie on their phone. What they were doing is actually sending WhatsApp messages using voice. Okay, so that itself is changing. Like, so many things are going to happen in the voice part, and with platforms becoming more intelligent, the way we market will change. So we have to be like present in all forms, in ready for every form of marketing that is available in the world. So like AR is coming, Apple's next phone will be AR compatible. So AR, of course, it's been a pipe dream for a very long time, but the real ones are voice, that is going to definitely take a surge. Vernacular language and native language processing, and I think all marketers have to be ready for that. So keep feeding your voice, audio, and data to these platforms, and you will emerge victorious within a year or two.
Thank you so much, Sanjeev. Last question: what would be your recommendation or a closure message to the marketers for short term as well as long term, or you want to classify it as tactical or strategical planning?
This is my opinion. It could be wrong, but first and foremost, if you want to be an astute marketer, I think one has to get their hands dirty in sales. Very, very important, because you can't find a place where you're closer to the end consumer, especially if you're in the FMCG sector or the end customer, unless you're in sales, right? And that is one place where maximum learning occurs, and it also helps in generating insights with the kind of amount of data that you manage in marketing. For short-term and tactical success, it's important to set your metrics very correctly. For example, in COVID times, if you're going to set your metrics as market share gain, it may not be the right metrics to keep, but rather a positive share of voice through social listening for your particular company or brand. That may have a much bigger impact than just a mediocre market share gain that could be triggered by different patient behavior in this pandemic situation. So I'll give you an example. What has this pandemic done? Patients don't want to go to the hospitals, right? And typically, let's say in a disease area like diabetes, a lot of patients don't take their medications regularly. But because now the elderly patients don't want to go to a hospital or don't want to risk having uncontrolled glucose levels and hence increasing the risk to COVID, they're actually taking more medications, taking it on time, and ensuring that they have a longer adherence, which automatically increases the sales for us. right? So you can't have a tactical aspiration of increased sales or market share, but it has to be more situational. So you have to define your metrics very correctly. And as far as long-term goals go, it's essential to not just think about the product or the brand that you're marketing at that particular point in time. You have to think of how long can this sustain, or what is the next that I can develop with the kind of communication or the ecosystem I'm building around the particular product or brand. And coming to the 7Ps, so pricing is extremely different in the pharmaceutical industry or the healthcare industry. And talking a little bit about it, different markets have very, very different healthcare ecosystem. So, for example, a US and a Japan are a patent cliff market. Once the product is off patent, there's absolutely nothing that you can do to promote the product and to get any kind of growth on the product. Reason being, the generics are at probably 1/100th the cost and are equally good in quality. But then you come to other markets which are out-of-pocket markets, such as India or maybe the Middle East and South Asia. Even if your product is higher priced, as I think Kunal was mentioning, people are not guaranteed of the quality when they're taking a generic product which is lower price. So you may still end up doing some marketing initiatives and get the results even with a higher price point. So different markets, different dynamics call for different measures when you're tracking your marketing metrics. So it's very important to define your short-term and long-term metrics based on which you're going to analyze whether something is a success or a failure. And it's also important to change these metrics as the times evolve, because again, this pandemic is something that no one ever thought of. So as soon as something like this hits, it's very important to be agile in terms of what you define as a success and failure, and more often than not look for the long-term success rather than just living from quarter to quarter, because now marketers also more or less have the same kind of quarter to quarter living like how you would probably see in sales. And also with India as a job ecosystem evolving, you don't see people sticking on for long, and that means their commitment to the long-term goal or vision of the particular brand or company reduces, unlike erstwhile years when people used to retire from the same company that they actually went into, right? And that's where there is more of long-term thinking, because you probably will have to deal with the same thing that you had deployed 10 years back. So you're not kind of getting a chance to escape out of what you've conceptualized. So having said that, it's important to have that long-term vision if you want to grow as a marketer over the years to come, because there's the true value of long-term vision can be seen even in short-term, with any kind of testing times as well.
Well, the intent was to challenge ourselves as to what's there beyond 7Ps and how relevant it is now. Challenging times do demand newer or improvised approach to deal with legacy problems. In the last webinar, we discussed about evolution, and I must say that adoption or change is the only constant. I sincerely thank each one of you for your participation and contribution. You can also watch the past webinars on www.cxotv.news, our online platform for media sharing exclusively for CXOs. Thank you very much.
For more updates from CXO TV, please like and subscribe to our channel.